Hey, welcome to the Reaching Eden podcast. This is podcast number 8. This is the podcast involving the development team members of Gears of Eden, an indie space adventure game that explores the world of sentient robots. So today we have the usual members. We have Sledge, our creative director, with us. How are you doing, Sledge?
I'm doing well. I'm ready to get started. Let's do it.
And then we also have Eric, who's the lead writer of the game.
Hello.
Glad you're here, Eric. And rounding out the team is me, Michael, and I also help manage the project. This episode of Reaching Eden, we're going to be doing the usual, updating you on the progress of our game, sharing some inspirations that we found, and discussing the games that we've played. So let's get to it. We hope you enjoyed the podcast as you listen, and let's get right to it, guys. Gears of Eden updates. The first big thing we wanted to talk to you guys about was the short story that we recently released. We wanted to make sure we had Eric on the podcast because it's been kind of his baby for these past month or two.
And you two have been telling me how to raise my baby. You've been super intrusive about my parenting, but I think it came out okay.
I think it's ready to go on to college and live a nice, successful life.
Wow. You grew up so fast.
Real fast.
They always do. And then you got to kick them off the curb because you can't keep supporting them. Speaking of the writing process, Eric, I know this is one of your first published stories that people are going to be seeing. How are you feeling right now?
It's weird, right? Because it's terrifying. But for some reason, so whenever I think about my writing and reflect on it, I use this very negative language towards myself. I don't say that a certain area needs improvement. I say I did it wrong, or it's a mistake or something. But for some reason, I think I'm so focused on the fear of my work being out there, I'm just sort of defaulting to, well, there's all these things where I could have done better, but I see those things. I'm just speaking very positively about the piece itself. So it's terrifying. There's also a nice aspect to it, a very healthy aspect.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. Just the fact that you realize that you're still a growing writer. But the exciting part of it is you finish the story, it's out there, people can read it now, and you can see your mistakes. And you're like, yeah, now I know what not to do next time.
Well, I feel like anyone can be a good writer so long as they're able to look at themselves and see what they're doing, not doing wrong, but see where they need to grow, and then actively pursuing that growth.
Well, I also know that just getting a story finished is one of the hardest things to do. Because I have a friend who's also a writer, and one of the problems she has is she has 20 stories, and they're all good stories, very interesting concepts and stuff that I would want to read. The problem being that she hasn't finished them, so I can't read them.
Yeah, so you're talking about one of the most common things that happen to an author or a writer.
Yeah.
Basically, as you're writing a story, you get past the beginning phase where everything's all new and it's this unexplored territory, and then you get half the way through or a third of the way through. Everyone has their own points where this happens, but you hit this point where it stops feeling like a new adventure and it starts feeling like work. And that's one of those very common points where people just drop off with the story. They stop working there. And then they get so easily distracted by the other idea they have that is so new and hasn't been hard yet. And it's just exciting and fun.
Well, new is always better.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like the writer's version of cheating. You could devote yourself to this committed, strong relationship with communication, all those nice things, or you could see that hot chick over there, what is going on, and just scurry off that way.
Would you actually agree with that, Sledge? Because I know that you wrote the script for your movie Recursion Theorem. Was it kind of hard to kind of stick on that one point?
The beauty of doing something short is that it's definitely easier to stay focused on it, but I definitely know what Eric's talking about, and I think it goes back to some of the discussions we had before where you are relying on motivation to see you through, and really it has to come down to a discipline instead. And I know for me, sometimes when I get behind on a project, then I start to feel bad about it and sort of guilty about not working on it. And so that negative emotion becomes tied to the project, and that makes me avoid it even more. So it can really be this vicious cycle that starts up, and it really comes back down to making sure you're being disciplined with your time and not just waiting around for inspiration, but doing the work to, put in it even if you don't feel like it.
Oh yeah, a reliance on motivation, it feels nice because motivation, with motivation you can get through anything. But it's one of those things where if you rely on it too much, it becomes one of the most creatively toxic elements in your life. Because then it becomes this thing where like you will only work if you feel motivated. Right. And motivation is so fleeting and so irregular. Like if you're just writing for yourself, if you're not wanting to get it out there to the world, that's fine. You know, write when you want to write. I'm not the boss of you. But
unless you are, get to work, you lazy bum.
If you are trying to like get your work out there and have that feeling of like I finished something, you really do need to learn to discipline yourself to keep going even when it's just a rough day and you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, and the hardest part is really just like sitting down and starting. And then once you get into it, and that's with anything, like whether it's working out or writing or whatever, like just showing up and getting started, like then suddenly that will build some forward momentum.
Whenever I try to write, there's usually like an hour of me having Word open, but also be like staring at Overwatch or looking at Reddit or something. Just all these other things that are so much more immediately gratifying than writing. But once I start writing, it's like, obviously it's more meaningful of an experience than doing even super well in Overwatch. But like, I can just keep going once I've started. Yeah. Whether I'm going at a slow pace or a fast pace, just once I've started with that process, it's very easy just to keep going. It's a snowball effect.
I was just going to say that. Hive mind.
I've stolen it from you.
I find that very relatable because whenever I had to do papers for college, I would always like have like I would have my Word open as well, and then I just like go for like an hour, maybe 2 hours, just absolutely nothing. And then like once I get my name on the paper finally, then I find that I'm actually able to like start typing words.
I need like a paragraph first, and then I can keep going.
Yeah.
I've actually, because I have that problem with like just the starting aspect of it, I've started to like set a little timer when I start writing to, like I set it for like an hour, and then I just try to race that hour to write 1,000 words. Like I so rarely actually get to 1,000 words in an hour, but it's one of those things where it just like, it encourages you to focus on exactly what you're supposed to be focusing on, and by the end of it, you just like, you have this product. You can see the fruits of your labor.
Well, and I think after like you do that enough, you're eventually going to have enough words that you can actually you actually get like a flow for your writing.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of that, obviously this is not going to be our only short story.
Nope.
We have many more stories in the works. Eric, how are you feeling about this new process, new stories? What should we be expecting?
So I want every short story to be kind of a self-contained experience. Like I don't want the reader to either A, need to catch up with every single one to like enjoy a story. That just seems like a failing on my part. And I don't really, if you read a short story in this little collection we're doing and you don't like the protagonist of it, I don't want you to be stuck with that protagonist for every short story. Like I want you to be able to kind of move on from them, which is that structure. But it also allows me to like really branch out with where we're able to go with these stories, like what we're allowed to talk about. Like we don't have to justify why one character is going to all these places. We just go and have fun.
Yeah, so we're going to be starting like an anthology series of sorts.
Yes. I don't know if we're going to do this, but whenever I like think about this to get excited, I imagine us actually putting out an anthology of like the finished collection once we've finished the game.
You know what we should do is just kind of after we get all the stories out, we have almost like an actual like professional book binding, you know, like really nice covers and all that stuff.
Definitely.
That is absolutely what I'm thinking.
That would be sweet.
Or hoping.
Yeah, and we tried to come up with like a really clever anthology name for the series, and we haven't done that yet. So we're open to suggestions. Right now, we're just calling them like a Gears of Eden story on each one. So we'll be considering that to think about that.
Wow, I was actually thinking you guys actually had something up, but nope, that was very simple.
Titles are the hardest thing in the world to come up with.
Well, which is funny because the title of the first short story I didn't understand until when we were going over the editing process, and and Sledge was having to explain what was happening.
Oh, well, it took me, I probably went through it like 3 or 4 times before it really connected, because when I'm going through and editing, like I'm focused so much on the details and looking for typos and different things. And so I didn't even step back to make the connection of the like how the title ties in the story. And I felt so stupid when I finally saw it.
Well, it's actually kind of funny because that title was not really like meant to be the official title. I just needed something there so I would stop staring at the title slot and not saying anything. And then we just kept writing and it just kind of fit. And I was like, okay, yeah.
Pure genius.
if only I could do that every time. And it's fun though, because it's kind of like classic sci-fi in like their naming conventions back in the 50s and 60s. I was like, all right, this is cool.
It's a happy coincidence, right?
Yeah. This is my do androids dream of electric sheep.
That is super exciting. I can't wait to read the next short stories we're going to be releasing. That actually brings us to an interesting point, because the point of these short stories is to generate content for, you guys, the audience, and make sure we can get you guys hyped up for the game when it finally does come out.
We want you to have something to care about between now and the actual release date of the game.
Exactly. So the plan for this is talking about the phase 2, which we talked about last week. Yeah. And the biggest thing is going to be through Patreon, which, if you guys don't know, really quick, it's kind of just this like subscriber platform where content creators can get a subscriber base of their community members to give them money every month, or like per content release or any of that kind of stuff. We just wanted to make sure we were giving you guys good content that you would be more than happy to pay for and feel good actually giving money to us to continue doing what we want to do.
Obviously, it would help us a ton if people subscribe to Patreon. We want to make sure it's worth their while.
Definitely.
And that's the other thing with the short stories is it's going to be part of the Patreon rewards. But we wanted to make sure that before you kind of like bought into it, expecting like some great grand story, we wanted to make sure you guys read it, liked the material, and were happy to continue seeing more.
Yeah.
So that's why for the first short story, we're kind of giving it out, letting people read it for free. And I think we're doing it for the next 2 stories, right?
Yeah, because we're bouncing around so much in this universe that, like, even if you were super into the first story, I would want you to know that in the second story that you're still on board with how standalone each story is, and on board with my process, because I am still a growing author right now. One of my favorite things about this short story was seeing all of the places I can grow and do better next time. I want you to be like aware of that before you pay money for it.
We're actually really excited about the Patreon stuff. We were doing our research, seeing what the other Patreon members were doing for the reward systems. And the stuff that we have on our Patreon right now, we feel is some of the best stuff we could be offering right now, alongside the regular content that we're providing right now. One of the other levels that we have on Patreon is, I want to say, the access to the builds that we're going to be putting out in the future, kind of early access stuff. Sledge, you want to take us through it a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things that we want to do on Patreon is provide more access to what we're doing, in the background with Gears of Eden. And part of what we want to do is get the in-between alpha builds out for release. So these will be the builds that we're testing internally, and we want to provide that to some of our subscribers on Patreon. So that'll be one of the reward levels that we have, in addition to having the short story access, and eventually we'll have some other concept art and things like that we'll be releasing out. So really, we're just trying to provide different content channels to you guys, and just to let you know that we need your support to make this game happen, especially as we're moving into phase 2, where we want to do more and do it faster and do it better. We can get there, but we need your help to get there. So look on our Patreon, look over our rewards, and see if the in-between alpha builds is something that may appeal to you, in addition to some of the other rewards.
Well, that's going to wrap it up. So before we move on to the next segment, there's something we need to talk about. It's serious, so you guys need to sit down if you're not sitting down. Reviews.
I love the idea of a jogger who's like listening to this. And he's like, okay, I'll stop. It's a nice little break.
You're welcome, jogger. So whether you leave reviews on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts, I know I like my podcasts when I get up in the morning, enjoy a nice cup of coffee, and just kind of sit down and relax and listen to some buffoons talk about random subjects, like this podcast. So why are our reviews so important? Well, they help increase our rankings, and they make it so much easier for other people to see us. And the biggest problem with the internet is visibility. If you can find the chance to leave a review and let other people give us a chance, we would definitely appreciate it. If you also want to leave a comment on our website, you can at www.gearsofeden.com, and you can let us know what you think of the podcast. You can also leave us possible suggestions to help improve the podcast, because that's our number one goal, is to continuously give you guys a better experience. We really appreciate your support, as it allows us to continue to do what we love to do. So with that, we'll get back to the show. That's it for the Gears of Eden updates. Now we're going on to my favorite portion, inspiration. So you may be wondering what inspiration is. Well, I've asked the guys here to give us an example from their own lives, whether entertainment, news, the internet, really anything that does one thing: inspire. This is the stuff that kind of motivates you, helps you get better ideas of what you could be doing with your life. We want to give you guys some examples of what we use to accomplish that. With that said, Eric, I think we have something to talk about. What's your inspiration?
So I am like, on Twitter it's called being a mutual with someone where you follow each other. I am a mutual with one of my favorite sci-fi authors like ever. And when I put up the short story this very same day, he actually read it.
Wow.
And he tweeted me saying that he liked it. He actually said he really liked it. He talked about the ending. He said other things. I don't remember what it all was because I was so just blown away that this person I respect so much was actually into it.
I imagine you were kind of like shocked just staring at your screen, just like frozen for a good minute or two.
Oh yeah, and like I know he was being nice. Like there's even if he's like proud of me for it, there's a lot with it that like I know needs work. But like ever since I saw that, like, and my first thought was, I need to get writing right now so that I can write a story that is like worth him saying he likes it.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, probably one of the best motivators you could have. The fear of disappointing your favorite person.
I've been writing every day since then, except for today because I've been so busy. But I've otherwise been writing. I've been so busy. It's a long story. No, it was such an insane thing for me to experience, though.
And we would be excited if anybody read it and just provided feedback and liked it. But the fact that it's somebody that you follow and you look up to makes it so much better.
Just for the record, anyone could like read the short story, go to Twitter and write, "Hello, I read your story." They didn't say they liked it. They didn't say nothing about it. I would be over the moon just knowing that someone read it. But the fact that it was like Kevin Cockle who liked it is so amazing for me.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Hopefully we can get
Thank
more
you.
comments like that in the future.
I would love that.
All right, Sledge.
Yeah.
You have to give it up. What's your inspiration this week?
All right, I've got a couple things this week. So I'm going to start off with the world of movies. I saw It this week, the Stephen King.
Oh, you saw it?
I saw It, the movie.
I hear it's pretty good.
It's pretty good, I would say. Yeah, it's we got to get past the title.
I hate that joke so much.
Oh, man.
Like, I want to keep it, but oh my god. Yeah, that's why.
It's hard to talk about. It's hard to search for too. I keep trying to Google stuff and it's just a nightmare.
I went and saw that movie with someone this weekend. And
Just called the movie Pennywise the Clown.
I texted them like, "Hey, want to see It?" with like capitalization. I figured they would get it. They were so confused for so long.
Man.
And I assumed they got it because I was just like turning out movie times. Like, so if we go here, it's just so many times we can go see it anytime we want. And they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I had to call him like, no, I mean Stephen King's It.
Yeah, but for this past week, it's been my favorite game. Just whenever someone talks about it, just kind of it's become my favorite usage of the word lately. So what'd you think of it?
Overall, I thought it was really well made and it was a good experience overall. I found like the CGI usage to be a little over the top in certain scenes. But I'll tell you like what I struggled with was sort of the world building and rule setting. So did you guys see it or see the original like TV movie version?
I have seen both now. Like as of yesterday, I've seen both.
Awesome.
Loyal listeners should know that I am a huge scaredy cat, so no, I have not seen it.
You could probably watch the original movie, honestly.
Yeah, so I had never seen
Like
that.
if you were just interested in the concept.
Well, I also hear that like the new movie is actually it's very interesting how it's got very distinct like genres of horror and comedy at the same time. Because I hear the kid from Stranger Things is just hilarious.
I thought he did a good job.
I don't mean to step over like your section.
No, go for it.
Sludge, but he was so funny. Like, he played the annoying 13-year-old boy so perfectly.
So well. It's like so good that you just think like, well, that's just who he is. But yeah, it was really good. And I felt like the characters really, like all the acting was really done, definitely in contrast to the TV version, which I haven't seen, but I've looked up a lot of clips just since seeing the new one, and man, I'm glad I skipped the original.
You basically seen the movie.
If you have like 3 hours to spare, or 3 hours where you can have it on in the background, it's pretty all right.
Glowing recommendations from Eric.
Oh yeah.
If you have 3 hours to like not really pay attention to it in the background, it's okay.
Because like the movie isn't good, But Tim Curry is just acting his heart out.
He tried. But yeah, so for this one, the biggest problem I had getting into it was sort of the world building and the rule setting. And I don't know, Eric, how you felt, but like the antagonist in the film, like the clown demon thing, it's pretty powerful. It's given like a pretty wide set of rules, and it never seems to really be restricted. And so for me, it made it a little more challenging to buy into the conflict, where, you know, other films, like I asked you, Eric, if you saw The Shining before, because I felt there was a lot of similarities in the tone. But in The Shining, like what scared me more about that was that it was a real person that was doing the stuff. And
yes.
And where this is like this all-powerful demonic being. And so that was the contrast I found, and like the part where I struggled a little bit. But overall, I think it was a fun movie, and it was really well made, like really well shot. Like I said, some of the CG effects on the clown and stuff took me out of it for a second, but
your kind of complaints with the movie, just the lack of restrictions and all that stuff, does that make you more aware of the fact that we need to be keeping that kind of stuff true for our stories as well?
Well, it just makes me think like anytime you're telling a story, you need to set out very clearly and very early on, like what are the rules of this world, and that you can't have, like, everything has to have a counterbalance to it. So the problem I had with Pennywise, even after the film, I'm like, well, why didn't he just kill the kids one off at a time whenever he wanted? Because he had so much power and he could get inside their minds. And so I maybe there's a little bit of play going on as part of the mechanic, but it just felt like this really isn't a fair match. And, you know, I just feel like the movie didn't care to bother to set that up. I don't felt like it seemed like it needed to do that. But as a viewer, that's something that I was a little bit lost in.
I love to say this because this is the only time I can say it. Yeah. The old movie explains this better.
Oh, really?
It is the one thing the old movie wins with. Basically, Pennywise is at his most powerful at that, like, center point, and the rest of the time he's sort of reaching out into the world. And so, like, by reaching, he's weakening himself a little bit. Like, he's, you know, it's the difference between reaching out with your hand and having your whole self in the act. It's explained better. I think it works, but in this movie, it is not explained very well at all.
No, it's not. So you're just sort of along for the ride, which is a fun ride. I mean, yes. I enjoyed it, but I just have my nitpicks here and there. It did feel really similar in tone to me, since we mentioned it to Stranger Things. So it has like that 80s vibe going on, and it's dealing with this sort of supernatural demon creature. So I think if you're a fan of Stranger Things, you'll probably enjoy this as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, these quibbles are like the quibbles of people who genuinely like the movie.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep last night.
I'm excited for the next like 10 years or so when we start getting like movies set in the 90s, you know, since it just kind of got that natural progression.
Oh, that's great. I think it's already kind of happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm excited to not watch that movie. So, Sledge, what's your next inspiration?
My other bit of inspiration this week comes from something that we've all been involved in, and that is we are sort of searching for a concept artist right now to help flesh out some of the ideas for the game and stuff that we can, share with people on social media and on our Patreon. Look for that soon.
It's a very exciting process.
It's really cool just to like look at all this concept art, and I've always enjoyed that aspect. So, I've got like a bunch of the Star Wars concept art books, and I just love seeing just the brainstorming part, that some of it evolves into a movie or a show that we become familiar with, but then you see this whole other side that was never used, and that's just fascinating to me. So just seeing the creativity and the art and the concepts. So it's really exciting to be moving in that direction with our game finally.
Well, yeah, it's amazing going through the process of searching concept art. We go through the artists, look at their like previous work and their portfolios, and just seeing the amazing like worlds that they can do. And I knew they did a good job when you instantly saw like one piece and you're instantly able to like have like these countless scenarios of different worlds just from that one point of view.
Yeah, it's amazing like how quickly when you're looking at different artists, like one, you sort of know instantly if they kind of fit into the brand and the world that we want to create. And then also like some of them, like you're saying, very quickly you look at their art and you start getting just drawn into the world that they're creating.
Yeah, there was one artist who like I didn't think would work for us, like for this game, but I wanted to make the game that they would work for. Because they were so good and they sparked the imagination so well.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. That's also going to be on our Patreon near future once we get our concept art down. And it's actually just super exciting to start getting in the mindset of what do we want our world to look like. Like, we already have parts of the game out already, but it's just one asteroid. And, you can take it to heart when I say this, that it is a very small little speck of dust in the grand scheme of things.
Well, and the designs that you see in the game now are all placeholders. So it's going to be set much more in the future oriented, and there's a lot to come. So yeah, stay tuned.
I still can't wait to see what the rover becomes.
Yeah.
Because you're right, the rover kind of looks like near future basically, but whenever we look at like designs that we think, oh, this could be something like the right thing, it's always these like far future cool things.
And it's going to be really important that it's expressive. So what we have right now is not expressive at all, but since
well, you can put the little thing up or down if you want.
So we want this thing to really be able to emote and for players to be able to connect with it on an emotional level. So that's going to be pretty exciting.
All these little changes are just going to kind of like our attempts to fully bring you guys into our world and get fully immersed in it. I'm glad you brought up that concept art, Sledge. I'm excited for it. Well, finally my time to shine. I got my inspiration all locked and ready for you guys. It's actually an article on GameIndustry.biz. We actually tweeted this on our Twitter account a while ago because honestly it's really interesting. As indie developer, one of the biggest things we need to do is get the word out, let people know that the game exists, and have people try the game. So we're always looking into how other developers are marketing themselves, how they're kind of getting in the scene. Basically, if you want to succeed, you just got to kind of look at what other people are doing, seeing what they do to succeed, and following suit. So for this article was talking about Descenders, which is a game made by Rage Squid and No More Robots. The article was just kind of listing down their reasons for success for having like a successful trailer launch. One of the biggest things is Descenders is a downhill motorbike game. Very simple, very very fast action, and it looks really cool. And I think they really did a good job in the trailer. So them breaking it down was very helpful for me, kind of looking at it and seeing what we could be doing for our game. Just kind of briefly go over the article. It was them talking about the hook and the kicker. And the kicker is basically what gets people actually devoted to the game, what's fun about the game and why people keep talking about the game. And the hook is actually the bait, the thing that gets people interested into it. They talked a little bit about that and how a lot of game developers focus a lot on the kicker, which they should, because if it's not a fun game, no one's going to play in it. But they wanted to make sure that for this trailer that they put enough attention on the hook. And it basically boiled down to them just putting all the cool and like Hollywood explosions in the minute trailer, and then using that hype to put faith into the viewers to do their own research and let the kicker do all the work for them as they delve into the game. And then they talked about some other stuff. And if you're interested in that kind of information, I highly suggest you take a look at the article.
Oh yeah, like listening to people who have been in this industry for so long and know the game and know how all this works is so fascinating. I follow this guy Lars Doucette, or @Larius Prime on Twitter, and he just like every day like drops these little knowledge bombs like about the industry and about the process of making games onto his feed. It's one of those great little things just for like what's called food for thought.
Yeah, we had another one we shared out this week about sort of talking about how if you're in the business of developing a game, especially an indie game now, you're also in the marketing business. And that's sort of touched on in this article as well. And it's amazing like how much work has to go into just trying to reach the audience and get the message out and sort of doing unconventional things. So, we're definitely trying as much as we can right now. And that, this podcast is part of that, along with the short stories and other things we discussed. So it's just amazing how there's just so much work to do, not just in making the game, but then this whole other half that's just trying to let people know about what you're doing.
I remember a while back, we had the three of us were deciding what we wanted to focus on most for the project. So we wouldn't overstretch ourselves, if at all possible. And we had this list of things we needed to make sure we're done, and none of us wanted to touch marketing.
Nobody likes marketing.
But it's so important. It's the most frustrating thing because it's like this necessary evil within the industry. You need to put in all this work so people actually can see you, because we live on the internet now where everyone can see everything and so they can't see anything.
Yeah, it becomes this information overload where there's so much stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You ignore 99% of it.
And I know whenever I see a new indie game pop up on my Twitter feed, I don't think a whole lot of it because I've been burned too many times. Just by a project that like isn't being responsible and professional about it. And you miss out on the ones like ours that do those things.
A winning argument, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. Pay us.
All right, that's going to be it for the inspiration for this week. Hopefully you guys found something that piqued your interest. Hopefully it gets you in the same path as us, just, following your dreams and just kind of getting your projects done. Inspiration is, like we say, not something that you should be using to get all your work done, but it helps get the creative juices flowing.
It's like when you're playing Super Mario and you get the little star. It's like, oh, sweet, I got the star. I can just run through all this now. I don't care about these piranha pants or these Koopas. But eventually the star goes away and you have to deal with the piranha pants. And I said pants both times. Piranha plants.
That's exactly it. And honestly, I love that comparison because that is actually where we're heading towards next, which is video games. So briefly going over what we're going to be talking about. This is the games that we've been playing this week. This is to kind of give you guys an idea of what our personalities are like and what we use to relax. Take it away, Sledge. What have you been playing this week?
I have not been playing too much this week, so the only game that I've really got some time in, other than Overwatch, of course, is a mobile game, Pocket Mortys. You guys, I don't think have played it, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I've been, enjoying the new season of Rick and Morty, and that sort of got me back into playing a little bit of Pocket Mortys because I'm really fascinated that this stupid yet brilliant show has created this connected universe with characters that have continuity and they, exist in this mobile app as well. So it's a lot of fun. I think it's I don't think there's another game like it where you have...
I was gonna say,
Yeah?
Yeah, I just can't think of a single game where you build a party of these things that fight other things and they level up and they learn new
And you go
attacks.
out in the wild and you capture, some of these and then you train them up.
And then you take them to gyms.
Sounds very familiar to this hugely popular 90s franchise. You may have heard of it.
Dragon Warrior Monsters.
That's exactly it. Or maybe I was talking about Pokemon, but I digress.
Dragon Warrior Monsters was better.
So things are already ripping off Pocket Mortys, huh? That's too bad.
Well, you jest, but possibly since Rick and Morty is about the sci-fi and going to the future and the different dimensions and all that stuff, maybe Pocket Mortys did come out first, and maybe the people saw that and went back to the 90s.
And maybe Dragon Warrior Monsters ripped them off.
Maybe, or Pokemon, or Digimon, any of those.
It's all a conspiracy.
Or the Shin Megami Tensei universe. All I know is really lame stuff. It's fun, but I'm embarrassed for knowing about it.
You should be, because I'm not understanding half of these references you're making either.
Okay, so Shin Megami Tensei is grown-up Pokemon that happen to be super Japanese. The whole thing is about Japanese mythology and cultural mores. And then it has this a spin-off thing of it called Persona games, which are similar. They're all that if it was an anime.
Oh yeah, well, Persona is based on the most popular anime of all time, JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
It's a gosh darn good anime.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually really excited to play that. To go back real quick on Pocket Mortys though. So you've never even played Pokemon games, have you, Sledge?
I've played a little bit of Pokemon Go, but that was the first one I played, and
really?
I sort of was a little bit interested in Pokemon, but I think that the cute and cuddly animation style turned me off a little bit. So I've always said
well, do I have something for you, Sledge?
Yes, tell me about it.
Back to Shin Megami Tensei. Shin Megami Tensei is grown-up Pokemon. Where it doesn't want to be cute. It just wants to be this edgy representation of Japanese culture and gods and stuff. If you're looking for the grown-up version of Pokemon or the Japanese version of Pocket Mortys, I would definitely suggest checking out Shin Megami Tensei.
All right.
I bet you would be super into it. Just on the exexecution of its concept.
Do they have a Go version where I can collect them in my backyard?
Oh god, that'd be so dark. I wouldn't want to play that.
Were you able to capture Pokemon in your backyard? Because I always had to go in go outside in the real world.
I mean, I could walk in my neighborhood and find a few, but yeah, to like really find stuff, you had to go to like a more populated area.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to go to the mall.
Oh God, not the mall.
And it's weird. Pokemon Go is definitely one of those games that like had this huge reason why people were actually going outside and interacting with other people.
And you could just walk around and like everyone was doing Pokemon for like a month or two, and then it went away like that. Just as quickly as it came, it was gone.
Well, did you hear they just had a convention for it?
No.
They have conventions for everything these days, though.
Well, they didn't know. I mean, like, the people who make Pokemon Go put on this massive event where everyone can go in and, like, catch some rare legendary Pokemon to kick off the raids they're doing now or something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really crazy, but I guess, like, a lot of people are still playing it. They're just quieter now.
We need to have, like, a mini game for our Rover character to just drive around and find little Pokemon robots.
We'll make our own version of Pokemon like I did in the 5th grade.
Like every kid in the 5th grade did. Thank you.
I had this cool star-shaped one.
Oh, like Staryu.
Yeah, don't they have that?
I also had this one that was like a little lizard thing and it was on fire.
Oh, like Charizard.
Sounds original.
A little lizard thing? That's Charmander.
Oh, sorry. We're cutting that all out.
Even I knew that somehow.
Yeah, well, I was just going for the thing that popped into my head.
Yeah, well, you were wrong.
Okay. All right, well, speaking of all these Japanese pocket morties and all that, I don't think that was your game for this week.
It was not. It's just, that's my workout game, honestly, Persona 5. This weekend, I finally had time to like just play a game for fun, and I have been playing Red Faction Guerrilla.
Really? Okay.
So you mentioned when we started this portion of the podcast, like, these are the games we unwind with.
Yeah.
This game is not about unwinding. Basically, you're this Martian, basically a slave on Mars. And everyone on Mars is rising up against the oppressive government, and you're leading that charge. So you're just going through these huge areas, taking out the man, blowing up buildings. Today, I had to destroy this bridge, and it took me like half an hour. Shooting off guys and then like planting bombs in these special places. I had to like just figure it out because it's one of those games where you can just approach problems however you want and you can break basically every structure.
Oh, okay.
It's a very well made game. It's actually very good, but it was so like tense for that half hour.
Yeah, it seems pretty stressful.
So good though.
Yeah, I remember that. That's actually a pretty old game, isn't it?
It was an Xbox 360 era game, but like early Xbox 360. And I don't think anyone played it.
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing like videos about it. And I'll be honest, like when I first saw it, it didn't look interesting because it seemed pretty empty.
It's a game that starts off bad.
Really?
Like the first zone of it, you're just sort of driving, like you drive a little bit, you get to a place and you break that place. Then you drive around, another place to break. Once you get like into the second zone, it becomes a lot more fun.
Man, that's sad to hear because if you can't have fun like in the first 5 minutes of the game, it makes it so much harder like to stick with it.
Oh yeah, well, and that's that first 5 minutes isn't just the first 5 minutes of some long campaign. It is every second that you've experienced from that game. If everything you've done with it is boring, why would you keep playing?
Exactly. Well, that's good to hear, though, that if you can stick with it, it turns a little better, but...
Yes. I've been playing, apparently, a lot of games that start out not great and then become super good.
I was going to say, because it seems like you're following this trend here, because we were talking about Monster Hunter, which apparently starts out the same way.
Monster Hunter is a game that I think starts out bad because it needs to, because there's such, like, a skill...
It's on purpose.
It's not on purpose. It's just like...
It has purpose.
It has purpose. You need to learn how to play this game. But when you look at the pictures for the game, it's all like, oh, he's fighting a dragon. And then the first mission, you're like, oh, I'm picking some berries.
So is that like your recommendations now are like, hey, you like games that start bad and get better, so here's some more for you.
Next podcast, I'm going to play something like Jedi Outcast or something, which is just good all the way through.
There you go. Well, speaking of something that kind of starts out bad, that actually kind of brings me to my game. And when I say that, I haven't had the time to play a game this week, which is terrible for the podcast. I mean, it's almost sacrilege to bring that up, but I actually thought about it a little bit. And for my recommendation I'm going to be putting up is called Duolingo.
Wow.
Dude. Oh my God. Talk. I can gush, but you talk.
Absolutely. So Duolingo, if you guys don't know, is basically like this language learning app. Normally that wouldn't really be a game, but if you haven't touched Duolingo, it's one of the apps you can get like on the phone or whatever. And right now I'm learning Spanish. It is probably one of the best made like language apps I've ever seen, because they understand what works for a game and uses all those facts to make their app so addicting.
Oh yeah.
So I talked to you guys a little bit about this earlier, and I think Eric, you kind of got hooked as well.
Yeah, well, so I got hooked just because like I want to know other language, and in the 3 days that I've been using it, I feel like I've learned more Spanish than I learned in 3 years of Spanish classes. But I also got hooked on it. So I'm taking this class where I'm like learning to be a writing tutor at my school's writing center, just like to make some money and and also to like understand that process better, just because I wanted to look at my own work through that lens. But anyway, we had this day where we talked about reframing how you like look at challenges, because we have this idea where you succeed in life because like you got the good result. Like you worked really hard and you got the A grade, and you worked really hard and you got the promotion, or it's all about that final thing that you can get.
Yeah.
I've been tripping out on this app because it ties directly into this notion of prioritizing a work ethic over a result.
Yeah.
The whole day of that class, I got off topic for a second, or I veered for a second. That whole class was about the success that these students were able to have when they were taught and praised for their ability to work hard.
Yeah, put effort in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the discussion stopped being, your grades aren't high enough, you're not doing well enough. It became, you could be working harder, or you're working very hard, and I'm proud of you for working very hard. And the way this app works is it basically, it gamifies the learning process, where it gives you little badges and coins and achievements just for trying. And it's so great.
It was really surprising because when I was just going there, because I just wanted to learn Spanish. I was the same. I took a couple years in high school. I have family members that know Spanish, so I'm familiar with it. But I wanted to get like a good grasp and like a good understanding of the language. So I was like, all right, let me get something. I heard of Duolingo. I hear it's pretty decent. I didn't realize how good it was going to be though, because you're right, because it perfectly gamifies everything from like you said, the achievements, the leaderboards. You can make clubs where you can talk with other people, and they even get down like the microtransaction parts of it right as well.
Yeah.
Which it makes perfect sense for an app. It's a free app. If you want to learn language, I highly recommend Duolingo. But it's even got things where like you can earn these thing called lingots, which are basically just like rupees, and you can get like these power ups, or you can get like outfits, bonus skills, like all this like crazy stuff that you don't need. But I think games do a great job, and we actually tweeted about this one as well, of like the gamification, like learning and all that. So it's really cool how that kind of all comes together. But it's amazing how Duolingo is able to take the gaming addictions that people have, and put it towards something like good, like using the powers of like gambling and addiction and put it to like learning languages. It's amazing.
And I think on some level we do want to be rewarded just for trying very hard. I think it does scratch the itch that you naturally have. It's so frustrating when you try so hard to do something and it just doesn't work out, and you have the effect of it not working out rather than how hard you tried.
Yeah.
And there's like obvious things to kind of like make sure you don't like go too overboard, like the whole participation trophies, because I think because like in my like viewpoint on it is like sometimes people don't actually put any effort into it, so if you get rewarded for that, they feel like they get a sort of entitlement. But the thing with games is, you're correct. If you can put yourself, and actually just anything, if you can put yourself into the process and love the process, like no matter what your goal is, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to have a good time. You're going to improve, because the process becomes the most important thing about what you're doing.
And this app and the study that we were looking at in class, neither of them let you move forward without proving that you're actually capable of moving forward to those points.
Yeah.
Like you can't just jump straight into common phrases until you have the basics down.
Well, and it's cool too, because you're able to test out of stuff if you're able to.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
So you're not lingering.
Yeah, so it's not something like you have to like go through everything. If you're like a moderate Spanish speaker, you can still get Duolingo, test out of the very basics, and then just catch up to where you should be going. So they do a phenomenal job, and it was almost a joke when I was thinking of for the games for this week, but I honestly think is probably one of the more successful mobile games out there. But it's something very useful.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a great execution on gameplay mechanics.
yeah, and if you get really good at it, you'll be able to handle all the localization for Gears of Eden for us. So that will be very handy.
Sounds like a plan.
Just a warning you, Sledge, I only know how to write in English.
Uh-oh.
So
It's all right. Michael will translate.
thank you, Michael.
And thank you, Google.
Oh, that'd be so sad.
It kind of makes sense though, since it's a machine world that they like have like really bad
It's
translation.
just super meta.
Well, guys, that's going to be it for this week. We had a lot of fun talking about games, talking about inspiration, talking about our game. We're glad that you're on this journey with us. So if you have any questions or you want to tell us what you think of the podcast, please let us know. You can contact us and find out more about Gears of Eden at www.gearsofeden.com or on our Twitter or Facebook. And if you're interested in finding out about anything that we've been talking about today, you're going to be able to find it in our link dump in our blog entry for the post on our website. Well, I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had some fun as well. Sledge, thank you for joining us.
I did have a lot of fun. Thank you.
Eric, thank you for joining us as well.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll be back in a couple of weeks, guys. All right, until then, we are the Gears of Eden development team, and we're reaching Eden. We hope you join us.